Hello everyone. Today I wanted to do a lightning talk about web components and VueJS and relation between them and developer experience and some technical details about those two topics. So a little bit about myself, starting with this. My name is Mikhail. I'm originally from Moscow. Now I'm working for ING. Passionate about web development for last decade, I would say. Let's get more to the topic. About a year ago, I was doing a presentation on the meetup organized by those beautiful guys. And it was called Vue for Angular Developers. And basically at that moment, I would say maybe 1/3 of a room or less raised their hands, like when I asked, do you know what the Vue is? So most of my presentation was about, Vue is a new framework, but it's going to stay for longer than your typical framework, which rises every two weeks, right? And it has a lot of cool features. It has community support and everything. So almost a year passed, and we are now at the VueJS meetup. And in 2 months, we're going to have the conference. Meanwhile, the framework itself got, I think, twice more stars on GitHub. A lot of cool tooling around it, a lot of cool plugins. So I think it's going really well, and I'm happy that we're here discussing the future of it. So basically, what I wanted to do today related to Vue and web components. So basically, go a little around what are web components, because it's a big topic today. What are the key elements of it, and then how it relates to VueJS developer experience and platform itself. Then highlight some maybe ups and downs, and what to expect in the future. Just for the summary, how many of you know what web components is? Please raise your hand. Okay, thanks. And the second question, it's not going to be a lot. Who of you use VueJS on your daily job, like 9 till 6? So it's almost the same amount of people, but they don't overlap a lot. Okay, anyway, So let's dive into all that. What is web components? You probably, if you didn't hear about it before, this term was coined by Microsoft like 20 years ago or so, about some composable stuff that you can plug into some enterprise platforms. It was really, really long ago, but the really fast development and at least the specification development and spreading of the developers' awareness about this started in 2011. And that's when the V3C committee started working on it, when people started thinking of how it may be implemented, what it may include, what it's going to be, and stuff like that. So it was 6 years ago, and so now we're getting closer to the point when it really hits the users' browsers more and more. So in a nutshell, it's as simple as this. You include some fancy component into your web page. Then you place it inside of your body tag, and then you use it depending on what is the content of this element. So it's think of it as like a data picker in Bootstrap, or I don't know, app tag in a Vue application or an Angular application, stuff like that. But the key feature is that it's all encapsulated inside of one custom element. It's called a tag. So for example here, if we try to go and click this link, it's probably the most fancy component to show how things work. So you have this, oh come on, this called emoji rain, and that's what you see, the emoji rain. It's a short demo. So you can have different types of elements and stuff like that. But let's get back to the story. Mm. Yeah. So this is a simplified version of it, but just a sec. I think I'm missing the presenter mode. Sorry. I'll need to start it all over again. I'm sorry. Yep. Go here. Wasn't really well tested the whole setup, but without a presenter mode, I don't think it will be very detailed. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So that was, in short, explanation how you may use it. But if we go more to the practical side, how the browser support it and what it's going to be, we can take a look at the can I use, and you basically see it's not that super cool for now. Chrome is really ahead of every other browser with that, but the others are really not very good. But as you see in the title, it's without polyfills, and the polyfill is a really big thing for the web components nowadays, because they still need to add the functionality that is not fully implemented in the modern browsers. So if we then check the table from web components JS library, which basically polyfills most of the missing stuff. It's by using this one, you may have it working even in IE 11. I mean, we're all like IE 11, right? That's what we are working for, right? So if you just add it up to your business logic code, to your application, you just need to add extra maybe 25, 35 kilobytes for the polyfills, and just for an example of one of the big libraries that use web components, Polymer. So in totally like 50 kilobytes on top of your application logic, and you are good to go with this set of browsers, which probably should cover quite a good deal of the modern users base. So then let's see what are the implementers, what are the main players on the market nowadays. Polymer, I put it separately because basically it's another big thing by Google. It has a lot of course, smart guys behind it, a lot of user base and everything. It's going really well. Recently they announced version 3, which covers a lot of, addresses the issues that were previously doing really well. But besides of that, there are at least 5. I named 3 other, let's say, competing implementations made by open source, by communities, which also comply with the specification. Sorry, the specification, we'll get to that later. It's maybe a bit out of context, but we'll go through the specification later. Also, maybe you came across such things as Ionic or AMP project. This basically, those teams of those projects, they also recently, or not very recently, been employing some parts of the web component specification for their projects. Okay, now let's try to look a little bit on at the code. So here, for example, I have here 3 component declarations. One is Polymer, another one Xtags, and here is finally VueJS. Yeah. So if you just look closely, you will see there's a lot of similar things. Each component is, well, I'm only talking now about the JavaScript part, because the markup of HTML and CSS is, it's not that big of a difference, but this is maybe the most different part, one from each other. So as you can see, it's a lot of similar things. It's no surprise, of course, because they were all looking into the web component specification, which was evolving at that moment, but still you can see basically each representation has the name of the component, some initial data it's going to work with, the methods which are visible internally for the component when it starts up, some life cycle hooks, things like that. But basically, if you know Vue.js, know and use it daily, then for you, switching to Xtags or Polymer or any other web components based platform would not be such a hassle. It's not like going from Angular to React or I don't know, from PHP to Haskell. It's pretty similar, you see. Okay, finally, to the what is actually the web component specification. It consists of 4 parts: the custom elements, shadow DOM specification, HTML imports, and HTML templates. So we'll try to go through all of them one by one and have a little bit of comparison how it's implemented, should be implemented in web components and what we have in Vue.js, so that we can see what is your workflow as a Vue developer and your workflow as a person who uses web components or one of the frameworks. How much is that different in case? So we'll start with the custom elements. That's probably the most well worked through part of it. So basically, it's about those custom tags that you've been seeing for years, I guess, already. And so on the right, I have the conventional implementation of custom element, where you can either declare it, just declare it, or you can also employ, add some methods on it and inner variables. And on the right, this is the picture from official Vue.js documentation, where you can see pretty similar things in terms of your component is being defined by where is it? So basically, if I had in module experts, if I had a name property and I call it foo, that would be the same kind of thing. So in Vue, you have already custom elements, and that's what is Vue around, let's say. So it's already in your workflow. So the second, actually, as I said, the custom elements is the most well worked out specification by that moment. It has a lot of implementations, and for example, if you have already a Vue project and you may want to mix it up with some other frameworks, again, based on web components or even Angular or React, you basically can employ this plugin, which is really tiny, but what it does, it wraps Vue element, Vue component into the proxy element, and then gives you the normal custom element tag, which can be inserted into any of your ecosystem of your page, of your other frameworks. So it's really, I think, a conventional thing to have. So if you have a brilliantly done component in Vue, which by some reason you need to inject into your legacy application or something, this is the way to go. It's a really well thought project. Okay, the next one, there's not much to say here. Shadow DOM, we probably all came across it once or more, and basically it's about the internal markup which belongs to the specific component and which can be interacted within this component and only by the methods of this component. So this you can find again in Vue, in modern Angular or React. So this we have almost out of the box, right? Next one, the HTML templates. Again, on the left you have the simple, let's say, conventional web components type of implementation, and on the right you have again example from official documentation. So if you use Vue.js with a Webpack loader, you can almost do the same things already, right? You have the template property where you can put your HTML if you want like this, or you can do it in a single file component. There's no problem. So again, from a workflow perspective, you'll have it out of the box with Vue, which is a good thing. And the last one, again, the HTML imports. On the left, you have the way it can be referenced when you're using web components, but in a Vue syntax, you can do it like this, and you get the whole component. It will be later bundled for you using Webpack, or if you use something else, you can use something else. So, of course, here is I try to summarize the downsides of using the framework instead of web components. This not only applies to Vue, but it's, I think, for all modern frameworks. You have those kind of well, downsides. Basically, that you include some extra library code, which may take extra load time and page weight. But the fact that you bundle this code, but in the end this code does the same thing as the browser tries to do, and it still cannot do it as efficiently as the browser vendors. So that's this overhead that you are paying for, but you're actually not doing it the best way you could. And of course, again, the problem that you need to have this knowledge as a developer, that you are high on Angular, but then you need to switch to React, and you're like, okay, I need some extra days or weeks and to switch your mindset and things like that. But when you use, when you will be using, let's say, web components, you will be following the patterns that will stay for long and that will be shared between different implementations, like I showed you in the beginning. Last but not the least, web components took 6 years to pop up to formulate the specifications, but it's still a big committee with all the industry representatives, all the big vendors, and it's slow. It's super slow, but it's much more predictable than owners of one framework or library, like basically where Google wants to go with Angular, they will go there whatever you want it or not. Or if even Vue tomorrow says, no, I'm gonna stop with VueJS, I hope it doesn't happen, but still it's a community or company driven project, and there is much more uncertainty compared to the standardized things that are under the hood of web components thing. So another summary slide I would like to show. Basically, I would call it a divergence era. So when web components were not yet on stage, but the industry already was really asking a lot of things from front-end side of the development. Yeah, we needed more stuff to show, do it faster, do it in a different ways, in a different settings, stuff like that. At that moment, there was no solid basement how to do things. No, let's say, and that's why every single freelancer or a big company started inventing the wheel. So if you could use jQuery, or you could start building Angular like Google did, or later you could come up with React like Facebook did, because they thought, okay, it's a good way for us to get rid of a lot of bugs and systematize what we're doing. But still, there were all those different approaches to basically the same set of problems, the same set of patterns that needs to be solved. And what I think is going to happen now, coming year or two, that basically all of those separate approaches will diverge to more conventional, more predictable way of doing things. And the basement for it is actually the web components specifications. As I said, it's a big deal. It took a while for the community to do it, but it can be a solid common basement for all the interested parties. So there will be hopefully less JavaScript fatigue, which we all have. Like every 2 weeks you have a new build tool or a packaging manager, or I don't know, the framework which does something super cool. I hope, of course, there always will be new things. That's how humanity develops, but there should be less of it, because we will have a good conventional tool for this. Just a short recap. Basically, what I wanted to summarize, that by comparing some of the web components approaches with the current Vue setup, I could state that your experience as a developer and hopefully as a user as well is pretty similar to what people who will be using web components will have. So we are on a really safe side here. And second point is that, yeah, with expecting browsers to implement the specification further, and the framework team, they actually, the Vue framework core team, they also have this point in their backlog, like when the support becomes more mature, we want to create something like a Webpack bundler or something that will directly convert Vue component into web components format, and so there will be almost no difference for you. Still writing your evergreen Vue components, but they are converted into correctly parsed web components types. And the last one is, yeah, that hopefully that diversity of frameworks where you have hundreds and hundreds of different approaches is going to an end, and there will be less of this, and there will be more mainstream approach, and of course some experimental path. That's normal. So some links which inspired me talking about that thing, and yeah, of course the whole presentation is here. Thank you for your attention, and I would be glad to hear questions from you guys.
Are there any questions?
Please.
You also have something like Polymer, and how does Vue web components compare to the Polymer stuff?
Well, web components is a specification. It's just white paper basically, and Polymer is the most widespread and most, let's say, popular for now implementation of it. While VueJS, as I tried to show in the beginning, that the API you're using as developer is pretty close to what is in web component specification and in Polymer. So in that sense, you have quite similar developer experience. And on the other side of the scale is the user, the one who opens your web page, and basically here again the overhead. If you leave aside the overhead and yeah, those minor details about that, if you use one framework, you're gonna stick to that and have some time to learn another one. If you leave aside those things, I would say it's also quite yeah, not far from each other. That's why I was comparing them basically.
But for example, at IG, they're using Polymer a lot, and I mean, most of the performance is really horrible. How is that with VueJS? Is it better?
Well, there was no chance to try Vue in ING. That's one thing. The second thing, ING, as any huge enterprise, is using a lot of stuff, and alongside with Polymer, there's all other frameworks that you name it. So, but you mean that the productivity was not very well on your mobile or on your?
Yeah, mobile is horrible.
Or you mean your mobile application or the web page when you open it on mobile? You mean.
Yeah.
But is it the one where you logged in or when you're just browsing the website? Because it's all different systems.
The new thing,
The new part.
That should be true. Like in my experience with Polymer, at least for the amount of time that I worked with it, is optimizing the components, like the tools around the Polymer ecosystem are not, I would say, yeah, crystallized yet. So minification and those sort of things are not perfect yet. The other problem that you have is like the only browser that correctly implements the web component specification is Chrome, so every other browser needs to use polyfills, and those have a huge overhead. And the other thing is, because of things like the Shadow DOM, Chrome plugins can actually mess with your application. So I myself am using Vimium a lot. I can work without it. In Polymer, it breaks because of the Shadow DOM. But those kind of things are possibilities why it doesn't perform as well.
would it also be the same with the Vue?
Vue doesn't use the standard. So Vue is like, if you come back to the essence, it's nearly the same as React, what it does.
Yeah, it's an abstraction layer on top of DOM APIs. Yeah.
Whenever we're talking about standards, I usually think of this brilliant XKCD comic where we have 12 standards and they're
14, 14, yeah.
of whatever number, and then we obviously need to consolidate all those standards, and we should create a new one. I sometimes have a feeling that that's what's being created here, that there's yet another thing that's being introduced. Sure, there's a difference that it's now in a browser. To me, that doesn't really mean it's any good. It's just that it's always there. What's your opinion on this? Your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the good thing is that it is in a browser and it's will stay for a long time, and it will hopefully make our life a bit more in some kind of borders. Will be less experimenting of different frameworks. But I have to admit, yeah, that's I think how the humanity and especially the technical community, yeah, makes their living. We're always inventing something. That's the fun part, right? So there will be always something different. So very good.
No further questions? And thank you, Mikhail.